So, hello, let's first make a screenshot. It seems that you need to do that. So, welcome back to this video. I've decided to make this video in kind of a weird way for me, because I'm actually using the camera in my normal Zoom or Skype setup and not in the YouTube setup. Because I'm actually doing an overheating test now. This camera has already been running for about 3.5 hours, and I will talk a little bit more. But it's also now in webcam mode in 4K, and I'm recording this using QuickTime. And as you can see by the nervous sort of movement, it's in center mode. So basically I can move around the frame and it tries to follow me. It's not on auto framing, but on this center framing. I think the setting is on a bit nervous, so it's really reacting quickly. You can adjust that, but I don't want to be behind the camera and do that now. I could have recorded this in a different way, but I decided to do it this way because I think it's in a way more fun. So let's quickly talk about some issues and what I'm doing now. Sorry if I not always look into the camera because I'm looking at other stuff. I'm not used to having this setup. So let's first talk about what this test is doing at the moment. So this morning, because by mistake, I already learned quite a few things. So this morning I turned on the camera to do another 4 or 5 hour test, and I forgot to put in the external battery. So I'm normally feeding it using a dummy battery, but I actually put a new battery in there, forgot to open the door, and then started running it. And after 2 hours and 45 minutes, no, basically after 2 hours, so maybe 1 hour and 50 minutes, it started giving me a battery warning. And I was like, why give me a battery warning if we are on a dummy battery? And I was like, oops, I forgot to put a dummy battery in there. It's on a normal battery and the door is closed. So that's some good news there, because I let it run until it really shut down. And it turned out to be 2 hours and about 20 minutes. So what was happening? So basically it turns out that if you're using USB, in this case on my Mac, it's feeding also power to the camera. And it means that we are in this old Sony mode where the USB is actually feeding the battery and trying to top it off. It will not run forever, clearly we found it out, but it will extend the battery life. So give you any idea, we had about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes where I had a battery warning, but it didn't shut down yet. There's no way that you can do 4K without that. And also when I removed it, so when I removed it, I mean, I put it in the mode where it's in now. So it ran out of battery after 2.5 hours. I quickly, probably took me about 30 seconds. I quickly removed the battery, put in the dummy battery, open the door, yeah, still open, open the door and continued. So, and we are still running, and so it's now about 1 o'clock, so we are already running for about an hour. And I also turned this centering mode on, just to see if that affected the record times. So, of course, I showed you a fan in the beginning. That's not the fan that I'm actually using. So when I was ordering parts for this testing, I ordered 2 parts, and this fan was like $8. So I was like, that's not a bad fan to have, almost like an extreme test to see if you can use it. But it's not the one that I'm actually using on the camera now, because I am using a fan on the camera. Hopefully you can't hear it. And this is probably not a perfect audio setup and also not a perfect video setup, because clearly it's a little bit too nervous. But I do think it is working. I should be careful that I don't run out of disk space, so that might be a problem on this Mac. And sorry about the nervousness, I will try to move less. I don't want to take it out of this mode. So what are we doing? We are now using it as in webcam mode in 4K 25p. The camera is on 50 shutter speed, so 50/25, that kind of makes sense. Like I said, it's not perfect, but you should see, I didn't comb my hair, and so you can clearly see these little spreads and they're very stable. So that's good. I'm also using an audio program because I'm using an external microphone. Let me turn it up. The Rode NT Generation 5, which is also hooked into my Mac. But that means that we need to have an audio delay. Now, what I found out, and I'm assuming this is in sync, I'm not sure if the extra cropping adds a little bit of a problem, but we are hopefully in sync. The sync turns out to be 90 milliseconds, so I'm using a program called Audio Hijack to basically reroute and delay the audio a tiny bit to get it into sync again. But for a webcam setup, this is not too complex. So now about the overheating and what we are adding. And again, sorry for the nervousness. I'm pretty sure it's a setting. If I move a little bit less, then it will probably stop doing that. Of course, you don't have to be in this mode. You can also be in a more stable mode. So let me first show you what I've hacked. And I'm pretty sure many people will say, oh, you're crazy, and etc, etc. You should have gotten FX3. You should have done A, B, C, or D. Let me just remind people that what I'm going to show you is basically what Fuji sells you for $200 for their own camera, right? It almost looks the same. It's kind of the same solution. You plug something in the back of your LCD and then it doesn't overheat anymore. There's also other products for Canon and for other brands, not made by their brands themselves, but by external brands that do the same trick. So I see this what I'm now making, and mine was a whole $15. This works, unless it shuts down now, but it's already running for 3 hours and no overheating signal. I'm going to ask SmallRig to make a base plate and something that we can also hook a solution like this on there. Not sure if they will make it. They've made quite a few parts for me before, so they might. And I think you should see my hacked version as, let's say, R&D for that. So since I'm lazy, we're going to continue this laziness. Of course, you want to see my solution. So let me first show you in Lightroom, because I'm lazy, what we are looking at. This is kind of the setup that we are now on. So you can see the camera, you see 3 wires coming out. You can bundle them together, of course. One is the USB cable, which makes sense because we're using USB to do it. The other one is a really small cable that you can probably tie up with the USB cable, which is going to the fan. And the fan is being powered by the monitor. That's also pretty obvious. And the third one, you can see the door being open, and you can see a small wire coming out, and the small wire coming out is the USB, is the dummy power. Now, and next to it you see old Logitech cam, which is quite a Brio. It's quite a nice camera, but you can clearly already see the massive size difference. I'm using a newer stand, which is about $80. I got it cheaper, about $50, $60. So that's very nice, to be fair. It can hold 5 kilograms, and this is not even a kilogram, so that should be fine. So let me show you the picture you really want to see. Well, or not. And again, don't scream. It's just, let me say, not for everybody. But if you are using this as a webcam, or you want to do once in a while a long recording, I think a solution based on this is totally acceptable. Clearly Fuji thinks so, because it sells you one for 200, and other brands also make this. Mine hack solution is $15. So here we go. So what are we seeing? We are seeing a $15 fan with a USB controller, so USB power and a small controller. I now have it on the highest speed. I don't think that's necessary, and it kind of looks like I glued it on the back. That's actually not true. What I did is, let me show you one more time so that you can quickly see it. Somebody is liking my video, which you just saw happening. So it's a good moment to stop this. So what you are seeing is actually I took the carton that the small fan was in. I cut it out. I bend it a little bit so that it fits to the LCD part, and then I put lots of tape on it to basically make sure that the fan doesn't drop off. And Also to make it fit a little bit better if you make it nice and black. And I think it's a pretty good solution. Of course, I made a hole in the middle to have the fan blow out. It's mostly better to have air coming out, and then it will suck air from different places. So I also made sure, and that's why I bent the end of the carton, that there is some air gap on top and below and in different spaces. Not much, but enough to make sure that it can suck basically air from the top side so that we know that it's taking heat away. Again, this has now been running for over 3 hours, and I don't see a heat warning, so I don't suspect that it will overheat at any point in time. So let me see if I can say more about this. It's about 22 degrees in here, Celsius. Does that mean that it will never overheat? No idea. I'm not sure how well this hack works. I'm also not sure how this will compare if we turn it into a real product. Because if Smolrik or another brand want to do it, but I'm going to ask Smolrik first, they probably make this out of metal. The metal will touch the back of the LCD, right? So you make it probably a little ring that it touches, and it can transfer much more heat into the metal part, and we've probably put some ribs on it so that this becomes a heat sink, and then you have the fan blowing. My guess is it will be way better. I'm not sure. I will test that later. What happens if you do internal recording turned on, and what happens if you use internal battery, etc., etc. That was also not my goal, because for me, this might be especially in 1080p, because I don't think 4K is needed. Not many applications are using it as a webcam in 4K, but if you need a 1080p, or if you need a 4K webcam solution that does funky stuff like allow you to move around, right, and zoom in and zoom out and do auto framing, I think this might be a very nice solution. Would I buy this camera for this? No. Well, unless you maybe make a lot of these videos. But would it be a nice extra feature? And would I then be upset that I need to, let's say with a magnet, plop up a little fan that plugs into my monitor? No, I don't care. If that means that I have stable 2 hours or 3 hours Zoom meetings in near darkness, because it is the A7S III sensor, right? I mean, it's very good in low light. I think that's perfectly acceptable. If I'm on an event, not always, because then I would definitely get a different camera. But let's say I want to record a recital for 2 hours or 3 hours, and I want to make sure that it doesn't overheat. Would I be okay with plumping up a USB powered fan? Yeah, I would be totally happy with it. A good solution, by the way, might be if you get a V-mount block or another USB block, and get a dummy battery which is also USB powered, right? And then this one can use the same power block. So you could use one power block to probably power it for, I don't know, 2 hours, 3 hours, using this power block, where one connection is going to the camera to feed it over a dummy. I would not use USB-C, although I just proved that it also can run for 2 hours over USB, but I will use a dummy connector, leave the door open, and hook up this kind of fan solution. Would it be totally okay, and would it look semi-professional if you're, let's say, in a meeting room and you have this camera in the back of the room aimed at the speaker? I don't think it will be too bad. Again, we are using this camera, like I already told you in a previous video, we are using this camera out of its spec, right? You're not supposed to do this with this camera, I think. But can you do it? Yes. Does it make sense for some people? Because it's cheaper than a Sony FX3 or even a Sony A7S III. Yes, and it also has some cool features, although it's a little bit nervous in my setting at the moment. It also has quite a few features that the other cameras don't have. I mean, it's a pretty good solution. Now, your views may vary on this. Also, your results may vary on this, depending on what you make yourself, depending how far production version could go, depending on if you're in the sun outside, which is a bad idea. I think you should always shade your camera, even if you put a small umbrella over it. You can also see the LCD then, so that's a bonus. I think it will not be the same for everybody. There might be unit to unit variations. There might be variations in just the airflow that it's getting. But I am proving now that this can work for some setups. So I'm not sure if somebody else has already done it, but I'm now in 4K for the last now more than 3 hours. Right, and I will let it run another hour, and I promise you, if I see a heat warning in the next hour, I will nicely report it on top of or below this video. So yeah, a totally different recording than I normally do, so I hope you don't mind. But yeah, this is it. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next one, where we will probably tell you more about heat control on the Sony zv-e1. But as I promised, I will just start calling it the E1, because the ZV part trips me up all the time. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you want to see more of these videos. I already released videos on the different lenses that you can use, and including the 10-18, which I think is very interesting. And I will definitely continue doing some of these heat tests. And if Smorik is willing to make a prototype for me, I will also try to report back on that. So I think with some hacking, and if you take all the YouTube, we want to get clicks to it's overheating, it's not overheating, this is what you do, this is a fix video, and you want to have some real info. Of course, I also don't mind clicks, but if you want to have some real info without the yelling and really provide solutions, then yeah, stick to this channel, and I will try to report back. Like I said in the other video, if you haven't seen it, I've also done this for the A6000 and the A6300 and the A6500 about 6 years ago. If you don't believe me, just use the search function and you will see the most crazy solutions that I made on these cameras, including putting a fan inside the battery department, or inside the battery, putting a fan behind it, all kinds of solutions, which also work, by the way. So I'm not new to this, and I just do it for fun, right? That does not mean that I say everybody should get this camera, it's a professional solution. No, I'm just having fun, and if it can help somebody, fine. If you are interested in this camera, and there are many reasons why you would be interested, I keep talking, sorry for that, but let's assume you want to use this as where it's intended for, just for vlogging, and use it with a 10-18 crop lens. It's 700 grams for the battery, the camera, and the lens, right? 700 grams. That's pretty amazing for what you're getting, right? And if you want to have that solution instead of a FX3, I can totally understand. It's cheaper, it's lighter, it's totally workable. And then you also want to use this webcam once in a while, because it's dark inside and you want to have a good picture. Then I think this is, then hacking is totally okay and allowed. Right? It's not like you're filming a wedding and you get sued if you don't perform. It's just you on a Zoom call, or you doing recording a recital, right? Of your kid. So again, thanks for watching, subscribe, and see you in the next one. We are not fading out because I'm too lazy to put a fade out in. I will probably just upload this file directly from QuickTime so you can see what the result is. So thank you for watching, and bye bye, and see you in the next one, which will be using the normal setup again. Bye bye.